live from London. And we have a guest who's currently in Vancouver, in Canada, Mr. Alfred Lambremont Webre, who most of you know through doing various interviews. We were just discussing his books and his own experiences, which are really fascinating. And I was interrupted by the adverts. You were just talking, Alfred, about the AI and that predatory artificial intelligence has invaded the planet and it's a stakeholder. And then what you were going to carry on to say something else about it?
Yeah. Well, if you look at the process that's going on the planet now and the transhumanist agenda, which is that there is an intelligent force that is attempting to terraform the planet from an organic divine intelligence incarnation planet, which is what we earthling humans have known it as, into a planet where earthling humans are terraformed into AI robotoids, where they no longer have a divine soul, but they have their DNA has been shifted, which is partially happening through the chemtrails, the Morgellons, a lot of the nanobots that are released through the chemtrails, and people with who allow the AI programming to become their god, and that is the intent of the transhumanist agenda, around which the artificial intelligence AI, the Draco Reptilian, the Orion, the Anunnaki Reptilian, and then the what we call the establishment, the matrix forces, are aligned. They, the ones that are creating this planet of war, disease, crime, and poverty, and saying that the way out of it is to create robotic humans, to create the New World Order, and an end to the divine spark within. And so that's the basic struggle that's going on now. So within that struggle, what I'm doing now is bringing forth what I believe to be an authentic, evidence-based, exopolitical perspective. And part of that in 2018 involves calling out the infiltrators from the transhumanist agenda, like Stephen Greer, who was trained by the CIA starting in 1980 to be an infiltrator into exopolitics, and to come out in the late 90s and early 2000s and beyond with a lot of these false memes that all extraterrestrials are good, and to make the way for the occupation of the planet by a very tyrannical regime that would eradicate humanity, that would be run by AI, and that would be run by authoritarian extraterrestrial civilizations that are not at all part of the intent of our original progenitors, which are the creators of this version of humans, which is Homo sapiens sapiens, which was a 12 to 13 strand DNA human. So,
and who did you say that they were? Who created us?
That's the Regional Galactic Governance Council, which are the Pleiadians, the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians. They're the upper dimensional, ethical, human civilizations that have created Homo sapiens sapiens and humanity on Earth, and that have been a defender of humanity on Earth against the incursions of the Draco Reptilians, the Orion Greys, the Anunnaki, and the sentient artificial intelligence, the PPAI, predatory pathogenic artificial intelligence, that have targeted this planet. Which civil war? I mean, we've been in about 200,000 years of interplanetary civil war on this planet and in this region. And that is because at the Omniverse level, at the spiritual level, we also had the kind of spiritual oversight of this sector of the galaxy went over to the Draco Reptilian, Orion Grey, Anunnaki Reptilian side. They're known popularly with the names Lucifer, Satan. So it was the Lucifer Rebellion, and a whole bunch of people at that level rebelled. And so now that is why Earth has such a troubled past. That is why we're in the midst of a solar system that is decimated. You're looking at a solar system that has been through decimating warfare at the third density level, third dimension. Earth is the only planet left standing in a way. Tiamat, which was a large verdant planet in our solar system, much larger than Earth, teeming with an advanced human civilization, was destroyed in a war with the invading reptilian forces, and it's now the asteroid belt. And Mars itself is in its condition where it's an obloid planet with no vegetation. Its entire surface ecology, where it used to be a verdant planet like Earth. We're part of an thriving interplanetary society with pyramids. It was a pyramid-based culture on Earth and on Mars and on Tiamat. You can say, well, Mars was destroyed by a solar system catastrophe, but there is evidence that it was nuclear warfare, and that did that. Or it could be because in these, planet destruction situations, many times celestial bodies are used like ammunition. And so that's what our solar system has been ground zero. So that's why there's a great deal of concern among the upper dimensional ethical civilizations that Earth not destroy itself, because we're a zero type civilization, and many zero type civilizations auto-destruct before they get to type 1. And we have nuclear weapons that can do that now, and we're, in an extremely vulnerable state. All you have to do is look at the current headlines, and they're all worst case scenarios that you would study in a political science graduate seminar,
Of course, yeah. I just want to interject quickly. I forgot after the show to give a shout out to the station for allowing us to be here. And if you're enjoying the show, please do remember to go to www.revolutionradiofreedomslips.com and hit the donate button and just give as much as you can to keep the show on air, because it's just self-supporting. Thank you, listeners. So going back to what actually, Alfred, is a zero-type civilization?
Well, this is a scale. It's the Kondratiev scale that was popularized by Dr. Michio Kaku, and that is part of the that is kind of the most popular typology of intelligent civilizations out there, and that is why I had to go out and develop the dimension-based typology, because it was not adequate for exopolitics. However, what the Kondratiev says is that you've got type 0, type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations, and each type is more and more advanced in terms of its sort of creative use of the universe around it. And a type 0 civilization is like Earth, the civilization that uses up its nest in energy. Right now, we're using up our nest. We're destroying our forests. We're burning fossil fuels. We're destroying the atmosphere. We're destroying the ozone layers. Just in this mad dash to have traffic jams in every city of the world, to build concrete roads that take up land use, that make cities a horrible, that are the death of cities. You just have to read Jane Jacobs' book about what overpasses do to cities. So we're the typical type 0 civilization, and we've allowed ourselves, because war on our planet is an industry, and all wars are controlled by the war industry, which is a unified industry. And the way that people make money on wars is that they control both sides of the war. So they get two societies to build up massive armaments against each other, and they make money on making the armaments, on keeping soldiers armed, and then when there is a war, they make the money on all the arms spent, and then on rebuilding all of the destruction. And it's a single force. It's the bankers, it's the government, and it's the religions, Islam versus Christianity, and it's a manipulation of that, and it's all Anunnaki technology, and that's how they keep us humans down, by manipulating us into perpetual wars. And it's just a single source that is doing that by manipulating all sides of the war from behind. So we have to break out of those patterns. And the way to break out of those patterns is to, number one, break the treaties, the secret treaties with those manipulatory evil extraterrestrials, including the Draco reptilians, the Orion Greys, and the Anunnaki reptilians, who signed a secret treaty with the United States of America Corporation in 1954. that even its own president, Dwight Eisenhower, was uneasy about. And what that did is that it placed the entire United States government, all of its police, all of its military forces, and its entire worldwide empire as a front for the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys and the Anunnaki reptilians. And behind that, the most advanced representation of the Anunnaki reptilians, which are the Zionists. They're hybrids. They're Anunnaki reptilian hybrids. And, you know, they're actually reptilians. They're more reptilian than they are human. So that's why we have this country that since 1945 has, you know, hundreds of military bases throughout the world, is the biggest polluter in the world, refused an offer in 1954 from the advanced human extraterrestrials for technologies that would have made this planet a paradise planet. You know, replicators for food, health, all of our health, you know, death would have lost its dominion, all of that. The one thing we had to do was give up nuclear weapons. And Eisenhower didn't have the strength. And the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff in 1954 went forward with the Bravo test of the hydrogen bomb instead, and they signed the treaty with the Draco, the Orion Greys, and the Anunnaki reptilians. And that set up formally the entire government apparatus down to all the state police, the West Virginia State Police, in service of that treaty, which includes provisions to serve up as many human children annually as possible to go into pedocriminal trade, either on the planet, ship them over to Saudi Arabia, ship them to the government pedocriminal things, and ship them to the solar system and intergalactic trade on children, on human slaves, on human body parts, on human souls, etc. So that's why we're in this condition. And then along with that, the whole culture, the CIA culture, you know, which set itself up as a chronography, I call it the secret time travel government, because they've used time travel technology and abused it as a political control technology by starting in 1971 to use time travel to pre-identify all U.S. presidents and groom them. And that's why even if you vote for a president on the left or vote for a president on the right, they're all the same policies. They pre-identified Bush 1, then Bill Clinton, Bush 2, Barack Obama were all the time travel pre-identified presidents out of 1971. And we've published the evidence of all of that. It's all at newsinsideout.com, at exopolitics.com. It's in our book, The Omniverse, because we've interviewed multiple whistleblowers from the secret U.S. time travel program that initially surveyed us, took our book, Exopolitics, from 2005, when it was first published, back to 1971, where I had to give a talk. I was invited to give a talk on protecting the environment to about 50 or so time travel officers from the CIA and DARPA, so that they could see what I was like back then, although they had my book and they were probably doing active time travel surveillance on me. And so what what the CIA has done, because they can monitor the future, and basically they're brainwashing the entire population, is that they create brainwashers. And they created among them Dr. Stephen Greer, who now we know because of two witnesses, Andrew DiBasciago and William Brett Stillings, who were part of the CIA Mars Jumper program, who were trained at the College of the Siskiyous in the summer of 1980. There they witnessed Stephen Greer being trained at the same college in the summer of 1980 at a class by the CIA of how to infiltrate the exopolitics and UFO movement that would be getting off the ground, the exopolitics movement, at the end of 1990s, beginning of the year 2000. Why? Because they had time traveled my book, the CIA had, back from 2001 back to 1971, so they had enough time to set up those training sessions in 1980 to train the infiltrators that they would go in into the exopolitics movement at the time just before my book would come out, and they would come in with the false memes. Oh yes, all ETs are good. Yeah, these Draco reptilians, they're good. These Orion Greys, they're good. These Anunnaki reptilians, they're good. It's all good.
Where do the Draco reptilians come from originally?
Yeah, that's a really
You were saying Lucifer
story.
and Satan.
No, right. That's a really interesting story. And we have an in-depth interview with Len Kasten, his book on the reptilian plan to destroy the human race. And that goes back to the original reptilian-human wars in our universe, which occurred around the Lyra constellation and Lyra. And by their nature, the reptilian exophenotype and the Draco, the constellation, it's the constellation Draco and the constellation Lyra. And one is the home of the humans and one is the home of the Draco reptilians. They're different. So the Draco reptilians are extremely territorial, imperialistic, aggressive, etc. And the Lyra humans, which is our kind of our home base in this galaxy and perhaps in the universe, are not that aggressive by nature. And we were attacked. The people can go to News Inside Out and just do an internet search for our interview with Len Kasten, and you'll go in and his book, and it's a very in-depth thing, and you'll learn the exopolitical history of the human race. It's very interesting.
Oh, excellent! What's the book called?
I think his book is called The Reptilian Plan to Destroy the Human Race.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, and so essentially the reptilians came to a point where they made an exophenotype decision to start emerging from their home base in the Draco constellation. They're extremely aggressive, and they made a decision to colonize the galaxy. And they are destructive. They will destroy anything that's in their path. And they're huge. They're 8 to 10 feet tall, and they eat humans. They drink human blood. They use loosh, which is terrorizing humans, killing them, and then eating the energy of their soul. You know, it's very, it's a profound thing. So then there was a war at Lyra, and you can imagine what the humans, who were not a warlike or expansionary race, at Lyra, that began the diaspora of the humans that had to flee Lyra and then fled throughout the galaxy. And that's how humans ended up at the Pleiades, Alpha Centauri, other places, and that's how they ended up at Earth. We're part of the diaspora, fleeing from the Draco invasion of Lyra. This is what the whole Star Wars series is kind of, is thought to be mythological, but it's based on the last 200,000 years of the Draco-human wars out of Draco and Lyra. And so finally, here on Earth, there's been part of the history of Earth has been a pitched battle between who owns Earth, the Draco reptilians or the humans. And so what happens? What happens?
Yeah, don't you think you were using that term expansionist, and humans aren't warlike and an expansionary race, but actually they are warlike, aren't they? And they are greedy. You know, they do.
But you're not allowing me to get to the punchlines, or you're asking good questions. Let me put it that way. So the Atlantean wars were actually wars between Mu and Atlantis, and Mu was populated by reptilians, and Atlantis was populated by Pleiadian volunteers that came over, and they were fighting for possession of Earth. However, the Dracos and the Orion Greys and the Anunnaki were in the fourth density, so they were kind of agitating from up there. And both of those continents were sunk. And the Pleiadians, unlike the Earth humans, our humans, do not have a reptilian portion to their brain. They only have a two-part brain, which is they have a mammalian brain and a neocortex. And that's why they're relatively peaceful in the Pleiades, Alpha Centauri, and the Syrians. In fact, I know and have interviewed a person, a colleague here, who was left here as an infant on Earth from Alpha Centauri as part of a project of the Council of Worlds. They bring infants from other advanced human worlds here, kind of the Superman story, to leaven our society. And that's among the other interviews that we have at Exopolitics TV, exopolitics.com. Now,
right, what is that?
No, wait.
That
now I'm getting to the punchline. I know people say that I talk very slow, but this is the real history, and so we've got to get through all of the false concepts that have been seeded over the millennia. And what occurred here is that there was kind of a truce between the humans and the reptilians in the war after Atlantis. And what the reptilians demanded is that the next iteration of humans have a reptilian component. and that is a tripartite brain. That they have a reptilian brain, a mammalian brain, and a neocortex, the rational neocortex, and that's us. That's what we have. We have reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and rational neocortex. And that's the compromise that came out of this war, because that way the fourth dimensional reptilians feel that through us they have a claim to the planet, because the reptilian brain in us, as long as there's a swath or a proportion of humanity that falls back on their reptilian brain, which is territorial and fear-oriented, they can control it and they can create wars. And then there's those of us who are light-oriented who say, no, just conquer your reptilian brain, you see? So that's the kind of push and pull of the current situation. So we are on a planet in which, you know, there's an interplay between the forces of light and the forces of darkness, between the reptilian and the human forces. And we have to come to a peace. And the peace is, it's like Armageddon is within, to the extent that we can all come to a sense of inner peace and reconcile our inner reptilian, mammalian, and neocortex, and our inner exophenotypes, and that we just move forward for and reclaim and claim the sovereignty of the Earth human race, which is us, you know, for richer, for poor, etc., and really reclaim this for humanity as against all of the extraterrestrial horde that's attempting to co-opt us, all of the AIs that are attempting to co-opt us, all of the Anunnaki matrix, you know, the secret societies, the skull and bones, the churches, the Vaticans, the Sanhedrin, the Zionists, you know, the protocols of the Sanhedrin, all that stuff that's attempting to co-opt us. And as long as we can reclaim that, then I think that we can create a positive future. And so what we did in this book that just came out called Journey is that we set out kind of a menu and a methodology of how we as a planet can move forward, you know, with an evolved and expanded consciousness, and with policies that will move us into a positive new world. It's like, oh, so now we know what our circumstances are. Okay, we've thrown away all of the false memes and propaganda, and we've unmasked all of the people that are, you know, trying to brainwash us. And now, so in this book, Journey, what we lay out is a plan to establish a new positive society on Earth with given, you know, truth and disclosure, new energy, teleportation and time travel, the implementation of teleportation as a global, national, regional, and local transportation system, the recognition of animals as sentient beings with rights, secure online direct democracy at the local, regional, national, and global level. Look, people now are running wars. All of wars are run out of cubicles in Orlando, Florida, or, you know, in underground bases in Colorado. They have online security, and they can run these wars anywhere out of the planet from underground bunkers with little guys in cubicles punching little buttons, you know, to bomb the heck out of wedding parties in Afghanistan. Well, we can use the same technology to implement what I call the Swiss Canton model, and that is eliminate the middle people, and that is at the local, regional, provincial, you know, national, international level. It's direct democracy. Everybody picks up their device, and it's like in Switzerland, they all come to the village square and they vote on the laws directly. And here on Earth, you don't have city councils anymore. People who are residents of a city, a town, or a village, when it comes to laws, boom, they vote on the laws directly. And this is non-hackable. You can get non-hackable technology. And governments are things that pick up the garbage, keep the streets clean, make sure, you know, criminals are caught. You know, it takes really kind of a functional area. And the monarchies are gone. All of these Anunnaki stuff and the city councils, you know, the legislatures, the parliaments, which were given to us by the Anunnaki to be these kind of priesthood, mind control, soul capturing organizations, they're eliminated because it's the people that vote directly at all levels. And that is being done, you know, and that can be done. The reinvention of money as a human right and public utility, like air, water, or electricity, available for creative investment at public money utilities. Social guarantees in the form of annual income, health care, and elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education for every person on the planet for life. World debt forgiveness, disenfranchisement of the state power of monarchies and religions worldwide, criminalization of the war industry, criminal prosecution and conviction of the war crimes racketeering organization, and restorative justice for war crimes victims. Now, all of this stuff is doable because it's stuff that I've done and that I've studied, you know, as a war crimes judge, and then I've studied all of this. All of this is entirely doable. It's just dependent on higher consciousness, and all that's preventing this is, you know, a bunch of old geezers and crooked people. That's all that are now being exposed. So if, you know, so I think that between 2018 and 2024, which is roughly the two Trump presidencies, Trump was born during a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are when the Buddha got enlightenment during a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses is when we humans individually can achieve enlightenment or soul migration, which technically we just finished a webinar on that. You can just go to News Inside Out and you'll find it there. You can go to our Facebook page. Just during the hours of the total lunar eclipse, the next one is on January 30th, 2018. We have 3 of them coming up in 2018 and 2019. There's a triad of lunar eclipses. And you just meditate and kind of let go of things and move your soul, which is located in your solar plexus, and move it all the way up to your crown chakra. And that's why you see all these Buddhist saints. They have these auras. It's because they migrated their soul up here. And that's what enlightenment is. And what it does is that it frees you from this matrix of war, disease, crime, and poverty, which they're beaming from, the negative forces are beaming down on Earth, trying to activate everybody's reptilian brain, and they have the whole 3D apparatus of government, religion, and money aimed at keeping us inside this cave. So this third book, Journey, has that all in it, and you can get these 3 books, the Omniverse Trilogy, at universebooks.com. And so it's all there. And look, I was a government official that in 1973, boom, and suddenly I was abducted into a short gray, I think it was a short gray, it could have been the original Galactic Governance Council. It could have been others. Go through the various alternatives in the different, in the presentation of the abduction, but they lay all of this out and coordinate it with the first U.S. president, Jimmy Carter, that was bringing in the positive ETs. All of the other ones were committed to the Dracos, and that's why then George W. Bush came in and they made a deal with the Iranians to hold the Iranian hostages until after the election of Ronald Reagan, so that the Dracos would get back in power in the U.S. and they could kick Jimmy Carter out of office. And the Iranians went along with it, which I think was very short-sighted of the Iranians to do that. I thought that the Iranian revolution would have a higher vibration. And I say that having been a war crimes correspondent for Press TV, the Iranian national press agency, for a number of years, which they asked me to do so after I was a judge on the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal that found George W. Bush, Richard B. Cheney, Donald H. Rumsfeld, and their attorneys guilty of war crimes in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Guantanamo, Cuba. So my message is that we all have the tools for liberation. At the personal level, we have the 3 eclipses coming up. The first on the 30th of January, we can achieve enlightenment here. We can, at the individual level. Number 2, we have the real story now of what's been going on since World War II. In the 20th century, what happened is that the reptilians took over. The Orion Greys came in, and first they signed a peace treaty with the Nazis in 1937. Then they signed a peace treaty with the American Masons, with Franklin Delano Roosevelt in Panama, in Balboa, Panama, in the late 1930s. And then you had the false flag of World War II, which is really when the Nazis took over the U.S., because the Nazis won World War II and set up their headquarters in Antarctica, on the moon and on Mars, and they took over the U.S. and which they've ruled until now, and through a cover government. So Eisenhower, when he signed over to the Dracos, it was a natural for him because he was signing a treaty of the U.S. with the Dracos, basically under orders from the Nazis in Antarctica, who were the allies of the Dracos. And Eisenhower was kind of caught in the middle because the Nazis were at his back and the Dracos were in front of him. And he didn't stand a chance if he would have tried to sign with the blondes, with the upper dimensional ethical humans. So now
are they still in Antarctica?
Yes. There is we have a secret space program now, and there are bases throughout the solar system, and there's slave labor throughout the solar system. There probably are 60 million, some estimates as high as 60 million human slaves working at industrial facilities throughout the solar system and on Mars. And we have published photographs of these slave facilities on Mars at exopolitics.com and at newsinsideout.com. That's what we've been doing all of these years. And, but Barack Obama's job was to cover all of this up. And all these presidents' jobs were to cover all of this up. And we just came out with an article showing how now they're attacking extraterrestrial and multi-dimensionally interested journalists and whistleblowers with directed energy weapons, so that whistleblowers who come out get attacked with directed energy weapons. And that article is out there at newsinsideout.com. So this is for real, folks. This is a real battle that's occurring, and you can choose sides. You can actually stand up and choose the side of the light. There is the side of the light. And if you want to begin to get an evidence-based case for the side of the light, go to universebooks.com, start reading up on the evidence-based case for a positive future. There are 3 books there: Exopolitics, Journey, and the Omniverse. They're all evidence-based, and there's a plan there how the entire human race can, using secure online direct democracy at the local, regional, national, and global level, we can just vote ourselves.
Do you think?
We can vote ourselves.
Do you think, Alfred, that to get more light in us, we can read things like Sermon on the Mount, works of Jesus, because he put a lot of light out there? I mean, would it help to read the scriptures?
Yeah, I think so. In fact, we published a webinar about a month ago, about four weeks ago, and the headline was, "The Sanhedrin may have executed Jesus as an extraterrestrial disclosure activist." And it was the Dead Sea Scrolls show that they prove that the Sanhedrin, the secret Zionist government, which still exists, may have executed Jesus as an extraterrestrial disclosure advocate. And those sections of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we have all of the evidence in that webinar, which were leaked from Israel under death threats. Those sections of the Dead Sea Scrolls are under Mossad armed guard and poisonous gas guard. If you get past the Mossad armed guard and you try to steal those sections, you'll die of poisonous gas. They don't want the people to know that Jesus was an extraterrestrial disclosure activist. He was trying to bring the message of the positive ETs. That's what this whole thing is about. This whole thing is about the Earth being occupied by the reptilians, which is still part of the Reptilian-human war from Lyra, and the pitched battles of humans versus reptilians, which is what Atlantis was really, and currently that there are races on the planet and, interest groups, the bankers, the governments, the religions that are on the side of the reptilians because they're promoting Anunnaki institutions, namely religion, money, and government. And they are reptilian hybrids. There are many on the planet that are reptilian hybrids, and therefore they take the reptilian side. And so all you have to do is let go of that, get into an evidence-based, science-based view of things, which is available to you at universebooks.com in this trilogy of Exopolitics, Journey, and the Omniverse. And humanity can, using secure online direct democracy at the local, regional, national, and global level, can actually vote itself into the next level of freedom. And using the Rome Treaty of the International Criminal Court, which 116 nations have ratified, we can use the national courts of those 116 nations to prosecute and convict and jail all of the war criminals. It's all there.
And of course, we can also, there's the human heart. I mean, like Jesus is pointing that out, our hearts, the reptilians haven't got that, our ability to love. Oh, we've come to the end of the show. Alfred, we've come to the end of the show. I'm really sorry. It seems to be cut short.